Greetings and salutations. Well, I got my pigtail made, and this here is a 20-pin connector, and I used up 19 of the slots. Let me take this apart and I'll show you. So for those of you that are new, this is a digital gauge cluster I got from Intellitronix. And there's a little bit of wiring that needs to be done. There's enough wire coming out of the back of this where you could, you know, solder and shrink wrap this directly to your existing gauge cluster harness. I got a little bit of deciphering to do. I'm not going to do a how-to do this, but I'll show it when it's complete. But I worked on this morning and got this connector. And this was not that difficult to do. Let me get this off without breaking it. So this is the connector. You can't put it on backwards. This will allow me to go in and take the instrument cluster out if I ever need to get underneath the dash, because I know me, and I'll probably have to get underneath the dash again. One of the reasons why I've been waiting for so long is because, obviously, 18 gauge wire, 14 gauge wire. 14 gauge wire is just a little bit too thick to fit through this bottom piece. And then underneath here is a silicone water barrier that those wires go through. And then the little pin connectors there click into this part, and it all gets sandwiched together. So what I did was I went online and I found the 10-foot length of colored wire. This particular one was 10 colors, and I have 19 pins. And to substitute pink, which are the power wires on the gauges, I just substituted red. And then and I have 3 of those. There's 3 grounds, 3 blacks, and there's 2 grays. So there's 2 grays and 2 greens, and there's a brown and a tan. Well, tan is like unicorn color for wire, apparently. So I found, because I'm a pack rat and I don't ever throw anything away, I found a lighter color brown in some of the wire that I have squirreled away, and I cut a piece for that for tan. And then the green, one was green, solid green, and then green with a yellow stripe. And I took a paint pen and I drew a yellow stripe on it. And then the 2 grays are the blinkers, and one was a black stripe. I just used a Sharpie and drew a black stripe on it. And then gray with a white stripe, and I took a paint pen and just painted a white stripe on it. Sometimes you just need to think outside the box. This also has a lock on it, so I can lock this connector together so it can't come apart. There's my gauges for now. I think today's going to be the day, boys. I'm working on the gauges, the Intellitronix gauges for the dually. There you can see them kind of all finished up, and it remains to be seen how well these are going to be centered in the bezel. But you can see I originally was going to run 2 different weather pack connectors. I was going to run the wires for these gauges through that hole. I ended up just running them through all the same hole. And there's my 20-pin connector that you may have seen in part 1. Again, these are the calibration and reset buttons. But here's the original instrument cluster connector. I connected into the back of the gauges right here, like so. And these are all the unused wires right there. Looks like there was a few grounds I could have just tapped into, but I ended up running the grounds. Screwed them directly into the body. And I used all but 2 of my wires. The tan wire is for, I think it was the tan one. Was it tan one? Yeah. The tan wire was for the emergency brake. I didn't hook that one up. And then the green with the yellow stripe was for the check engine light, which I don't have in this vehicle. This was originally powered by a 6.2 diesel, which was a mechanical diesel engine, and it doesn't have a computer, so I didn't have to wire that up. So I got my pigtail wired in. I did plug this in last night just to see if it powered up, and it did, which is a far cry better than having the magic smoke. That's bad. I didn't have any of that. So I haven't loomed anything yet, so I have, you know, some wires here. This green wire is for the tax signal. This blue wire is to the temperature sender. I've got this orange wire I need to tie into my oil pressure sender, which, I don't know, can you see it down there underneath the power steering pump? That's where that's at. I put a T on there, a brass T, and I have my mechanical gauge, my hard line for the mechanical gauge that's in the car. I'll probably relocate that to inside the engine compartment here eventually, but I'm not convinced that that's going to be a good spot for that. Let me tell you a little story. When I was driving this truck, where was I going? I was driving cross country. I was going to Vancouver, British Columbia. 2002, I believe it was. Anyway, I was driving cross country, and I was driving through North Dakota. And just as I got to Bismarck, now this is back when this engine was a 6.2 diesel, and I was trying to do a 6.5 turbo conversion on that, but I just couldn't. My turbo, the seals were bad in the turbo, so I went back to NA. But I had teed off the oil pressure port on the back of the engine, which would be the same place it would be on like a small block. Right over there, behind the distributor, is where that would be. And I put a brass T off of that to feed for oil feed for the turbo. And at 6.2, you know, it's a diesel engine and there's a lot of vibration and stuff. Well, anyway, the harmonics of that engine running down the highway for hours and hours and hours, and then the T broke. And I promptly pumped 2.5 gallons of oil out of the engine. Fortunately for me, it was coming into Bismarck, North Dakota. And I was literally within an eye shot, like within a mile of a highway exit where there was a gas station. And I had my mountain bike with me, so I just unloaded the mountain bike, rode to the gas station, got the oil, rode back, plugged it with something, and I was on my happy way. It only cost me a couple hours. So I'm having a little deja vu when I see that oil pressure sender sticking out underneath there off a T, and it's about an inch long T that screws into the engine block. The oil pressure port is down there on the front of the engine. There is no port on the back of the engine where you would normally find one. So I'll try this, and if this looks like it's going to start to fail, I'll probably end up getting a braided stainless Teflon type mechanical gauge line. You can get those, I think, up to 3 feet. You know, move it up here on the firewall someplace so it's isolated from the engine. But I still need to hook that up. Oh, and I lost one of my thumb screws, so I got to go down to the hardware store and see if I can find if not a thumb screw, then just a nylock or something. I got to wire that in. I've got a ground and a signal off of that. Let me show you where that thing comes out on the engine. It's pretty precarious. So one of the things I had to do to make this work in this location was I had to take my plasma cutter and clearance the power steering bracket to make room for this. There is a 1-inch brass extension to a brass T. There, if that's showing up, I'm sure it will. But anyway, so this is the feed from my mechanical gauge, And then this is where I need to hook up these wires. I might as well pull that out, right? So I need to cut those. One of these is a signal, the other is a ground. I'll probably run a ground wire from here to there or something. And ground it right to the engine block. Hold on 1 second. All right. That's where I'm going to cut that one. Show you the vehicle speed sensor and where that's located at. And I need to do some final wiring on that. So there's the vehicle speed sensor that comes with the kit. You got a ground here, keyed 12 volts here, and then this is the signal wire, and this will get hooked up to this wire, and that replaces the mechanical speedometer cable. Alright, so I need to wire this up. I need to wire up the oil pressure sender. I've already wired up the tach and the temperature sensor for the coolant. I had to drain the coolant out of the radiator to lower the coolant level so I didn't lose a lot of antifreeze. So I got to fill that back up. Once I get that done, I'll plug the gauges in and see how that works. So in the instructions, they say to run the grounds from the gauges directly to the engine for optimal performance, and I didn't do that. As you saw, I ran my grounds to the chassis, or to the cab, and then up here by the battery, I have a 10 gauge wire that runs from the core support down to the chassis, and then a 2-watt negative cable that runs from the chassis up to the engine. Normally you'd find a small copper ground strap that would run from the back of the passenger side cylinder head on a Chevy truck up to the firewall, and that's long disappeared. I think that's a much better ground anyway. So I ran all my sensors, the grounds for the oil pressure and the speed sensor, I just ran those to the chassis, and ran the grounds for the gauges to the cab, and hopefully that's good enough ground. If not, then I'll have to run a wire, probably a 10 gauge wire, and connect all those 3 grounds and run it through the firewall and run those grounds to the engine. But I'll worry about that when I get the gauges plugged in. So I lost this thumb screw, one of them, for the oil pressure sender. I'm going to run down the hardware store and see about getting a either a couple of nuts or a nylock nut so I can attach those wires to the sender. So I'm going to run to the hardware store real quick. See you in a minute. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. There's a picture of the sending unit. Obviously made in China because those are metric studs. So I got this is an M470 thread. So I got a nut, and I just you know, went to go tighten it down. I just snugged it up, and I felt it break loose. So I need to get a new oil pressure sender. Great. I hope they can get it here quicker than they got the gauges here, because it took like 2 months to get the gauges here. But let me show you. So, yeah, that's not connected no more. Hopefully it doesn't hemorrhage oil. It probably will. But anyway, it was hemorrhaging oil. You can see the oil leaks right here. It's because it wasn't even tight. The nipple and everything was loose, so I had to pull this off and tighten everything up and hooked it back up. This probably is not going to work now. It's one of the reasons why I always like mechanical backups. Right now I need to top off my radiator, then I'll hook up the gauges and see about getting them, the rest of them, to work anyway. I'm at it. I might as well hook up my new reservoir tank from LMC truck. Hashtag not sponsored.
Fluttering, it's messing with the frame rate on the camera. It's not doing that in the
cab of the truck. Alright, I see something. I see smoke. No, I think I just got antifreeze. A little bit of antifreeze on that header wrap when I pulled the old thing out. That's not a good sign. Ouch. Where is this? Leaking from. Well, it could be just leaking from there. Yeah, that thing's leaking. It's leaking right from there. Alright. God, I'm gonna get copyright struck. Neighbor decided to go work on his truck and turn the frickin' radio on so the entire neighborhood can hear, and then went back inside. Joe fucks. The way that thing is set up, I gotta get a new sender anyway. So I'm gonna go online and get a oil pressure hose, braided stainless steel Teflon lined hose for that, and then I'm gonna run that, either get like a 1 foot piece and get it up out of the bowels of that engine compartment, up on the frame or someplace on the firewall, and then I don't have to worry about that breaking anyway. So I might do that, and I'll go online and order another sender, just because that one's broken. The biggest lesson learned here is don't do what I did and, you know, gut your vehicle and leave it sitting out in the freaking weather to get baked by the sun for, you know, half a decade. That would not be good. So there's a lot of different options when it comes to gauge clusters for these old square bodies, but this by far was the cheapest option for a digital gauge, and I had to wait a little extra to get the bar graphs on all the gauges. If you're completely fine with the 1970s type font for the pressures, the readouts, you can get those immediately. They're about $400. I mean, it's not cheap, but neither's a replacement instrument cluster, and that's really dependent on how well your wiring harness is, isn't it? So check them out, Intellitronix.com. I'm not being paid to say that. They didn't send me this. I bought this with my own money. Actually, I bought it with the bank's money. Now I got to pay the bank back. This is exactly what I wanted, and it's exactly what I expected. Depending on the model of your vehicle, you might have to do a little bit of trimming and fabbing to make it work in your application. Don't be afraid to do that. And if you are afraid to do that, then find somebody that's capable and have them do it. Hey, if you haven't done so yet, click the subscribe button and the little bell icon. That way you get post notifications. If you like this video, smash the like button, share it with your vast social media network. If you'd like to support the channel, going through the links in the description, you can do all your Amazon shopping through any of those Amazon links down there. Check it out. If you'd like to throw me a couple bucks, there's PayPal and there's Patreon if you want to support the channel on the monthly. Thank you in advance if you can do that. If you can't afford to do that, that's okay. It means we're probably related. So until next time, you have fun, stay safe, shoot straight, keep powder dry, have a splendid day. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.